All right, and we are live, and I am joined with my good friend Reckless Trucker. How are you doing tonight?
Hey man, I'm doing good. Actually, barely just finished the subject of tonight's show.
Yes, this is going to be a review for the BBC and Apple TV production Prehistoric Planet, who we both watched.
Really
And
well done, really good.
yes, and let me talk a little bit about my background and why I was really looking forward to this project. I've always been into paleontology pretty much since I was a little kid. It's kind of always really like paleo shows. Probably, and one of my favorite shows growing up was the 1999 BBC series Walking with Dinosaurs, because I loved how it treated them like real animals. Essentially, it kind of did a pseudo nature documentary on it with kind of at the time the latest fossil evidence.
And the decent CGI and whatnot for the time. Practical effects at the time were amazing.
Oh yeah, the effects work was pretty good for the time. I believe Walking with Dinosaurs was the most expensive BBC series per minute ever made at the time.
Really?
Yeah, it cost $10 million, and I think what is that, 17 million adjusted to inflation, which isn't really a lot by today's standards, but for like a nature documentary series in 1999, it was actually considered a pretty big budget.
Yeah, especially by the BBC.
Yeah, yeah. And it broadcast in America, I believe, on the Discovery Channel. Well, the first time.
Yeah. That's where I
And,
remember having seen it as a kid.
and and basically, I was absolutely blown away by Walking with Dinosaurs. I thought it was one of those amazing things I'd ever watched, uh, because of the fact that it treated them like animals. And then like the next 2 years, you got like there was like an additional episode they made the next year, a Ballad of Big Al, all about Allosaurus. That was probably as good as any episode from the original series.
I really liked that because like you really got to like meet and know this one individual dinosaur and get to like feel for him.
Right.
And it was like, he was adorable.
Yeah, Big Al, yeah.
I mean, not adorable, but you felt like he was adorable. Big homie, probably on his last adventure, trying to get some girl.
Yeah, it does kind of like falsely state his size. It mentions that his full size would have been 40 feet in length, but Allosaurus couldn't get that big.
Yeah, I think the biggest ones were like 30 or 32 or something like that we found.
Right.
Maybe even smaller.
There was a relative of Allosaurus called Saurophagonax. That there's kind of a debate of whether it's actually its own genus or whether it's a species of Allosaur. So it was a pretty closely related creature that lived at the same time. And it actually could get close to 40 feet long, but Big Al, the fossil that that episode was based on, was not a Saurophagonax, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
But one thing the Prehistoric Planet did is there was a clear callback to the Ballad of Big Al in the second desert episode. The way the opening shot with the sauropods in the distance, it's almost shot for shot very similar to like this scene where these Diplodocus are walking across the salt plains in that episode.
Right. I was thinking that looked familiar, man.
Yeah, that was a nice little callback right there.
Oh yeah, but I just found it like you had suggested it over Twitter, and I really like visually it looked really good. And you mentioned there was a free trial going on right now, so I decided to try it out, and really good. I ended up binging the whole thing today, actually.
Yeah, I could have binged. I watched them mostly one at a time, like after work each day. Well, then again, I missed it. What was it? I think Wednesday night, and I had to watch two the next day, but that's it. but I was just kind of watching it almost as soon as I could because the trailer not only was the trailer really awesome, but Attenborough's involvement in it was a huge plus for me.
Right, like he does. He's got a great background in BBC documentaries, and he is a good narrator.
Well, not only is he a great narrator, but he's really smart enough to only put his name on really like legit scientific content.
Right, that's true.
Here, I'm going to show you guys something here. Hold on now. Let me turn the camera in here. As you see, I pretty much have been collecting Attenborough's documentaries for years. I got a shit ton of them on Blu-ray.
Nice. I wish I had those, man. But no, you are right. Like if he attached his name to it, he did his research into seeing if it was worth his time.
Right, exactly. The man's 96, so he's not someone who just kind of will attach his name to anything because he needs the money. He's at the point in his life where he doesn't give a shit.
Right, like the only reason he'd be attached to something is because it made him give a shit.
Right.
But
and what's interesting is he actually was the original choice to narrate Walking with Dinosaurs back in the 90s, and he turned it down.
Really?
Well, he did. And he did so because he claimed he didn't like that Walking with Dinosaurs was too speculative, and he didn't want to be associated with a fictional nature documentary.
Well, what's funny about this is, if anything, this was more speculative, but it was better at the speculation, I would say, than Walking with Dinosaurs was.
I'd say they were probably equally speculative. This prehistoric planet definitely engaged in speculation, but it did a better job. One, it came out 22 something years later, and all that time, a lot of things in Walking with Dinosaurs have been proven wrong.
Right, and like a lot of our theories about what, like our speculations, have been proven wrong. And while obviously a lot of these things, like display things, haven't been proven right, they've been proven more likely than other theories.
Right.
Like, I think a good one is the Allosaur one. If I may be remembering this wrong, but I do believe that we have found pigments that show oddly bright areas on them. And that could only really be a display thing like it is in the show.
Yeah, the crests on its head almost certainly were display things. One interesting thing, the reason why the animation model is a little different in Bale to Big Al than it was in the first Walking with Dinosaurs, because the first Walking with Dinosaurs screwed up where the head crests were. They put them directly above the eyes, and the real animal, it was a bit in front of the eyes.
Right.
So that's why the head shape is different in like the Bale to Big Al than the first, because they were just fixing that screw up.
Right. So do you want to go episode by episode and talk about like some really cool things that we liked or our favorite little features and whatnot?
Yeah, we can do that. But one of the main differences in structure about this is for one thing, it's set entirely. The entire series is set all in the late Cretaceous, all 66 million years ago. That's something. Not only Walking with Dinosaurs, but a lot of different dinosaur series, Dinosaur Revolution, Planet Dinosaur, what have you. They've all kind of like either jumped around in the timeline, or they like start in the Triassic period and try to like build it up. Like Walking with Dinosaurs, it's 6 episodes. The first episode is in the late Triassic period, and then the second 2 are in the Jurassic. The last 3 are in the Cretaceous, and only the final episode is set when this episode is in the very end of the Cretaceous period. And
right.
It kind of built a narrative on that. Like the first episode, it basically begins with the kind of like the small dinosaur surrounded by all these various other strange creatures that kind of evolved in the Triassic. The dinosaurs were kind of just like one group that evolved in the Triassic amongst a whole bunch of other groups of reptiles and like early mammals and what have you. And then there was another mass extinction at the end of the Triassic that wiped most of them out, and the dinosaurs just kind of came on top after that.
Right. Well, I didn't even, honestly, because I'm not as aware of dinosaur names as you are. I got all the generic ones down, obviously, you know. but you got a lot more of the specificity down.
Right.
But I didn't realize this was late Cretaceous until they showed almost modern bees. And
Yeah,
because there have been honeybees for like, I think something like 100 or 120 million years. Like,
yeah, honeybees. Like they originated in the middle of the Cretaceous. They like in the Jurassic period. They wouldn't been around. That's the thing about the late Cretaceous world that this episode is, this entire series is set, is in many ways more similar to our world today than it was to the Jurassic period. It's closer
right.
to our world than the Jurassic period. Tyrannosaurus and Triceratops live closer to our time than they did to Allosaurus and Stegosaurus.
Right. Well, what's really funny about that too, man, is like, other than a few key things, like until the very late Cretaceous, I don't think even grass had properly evolved as we know it today.
Right.
But
that's why there's no episode of this called Grasslands, because there weren't any back then.
But what was really interesting for me too is like how they featured that, because a lot of these shows, these fake documentaries for dinosaurs, they just go for the big spectacle of it. And like, obviously this one had those scenes, but you could tell like the forest and stuff, they would be different, but at the same time, you would be forgiven for mistaking them for modern forest, which is true, because like a lot of our modern day plants had evolved, like 100 million years ago, 80 million years ago.
Yeah.
But
they actually had like a team of paleobotanists to make sure that they had their plant fauna in this series. Well, that's what I thought about Prehistoric Planet that stunned me. The attention to accuracy in this series is insane. There was, and there's never been a project like Prehistoric Planet before, where big Hollywood talent like Jon Favreau, who's made like a whole bunch of big bullshit movies for Disney, he basically gets the funding for a big budget series on dinosaurs, but he then lets the paleontologists have like complete creative control over it. He doesn't just bring in a couple paleontologists and have them like advise things, but then ignore half of what they say. No, he gives them full creative control to people who really dedicated their lives to this and knew what they were talking about. And
well, I think Favreau really learned from what was basically the weird screw up of the live action, quote unquote, Lion King, where he was overly involved, because since then he's been kind of half detached from movies that he does. Right. And it's really been for the better.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And this one especially, like I said, like, well, just as a great example, in the first episode, we see the plesiosaurs, right? And it is true that we have actually found fossilized, what do you call those? The stones in birds, gizzard stones, in plesiosaurs that could only have come from rivers.
Yeah.
And so it was very interesting for them to showcase that. As like it'd be something that you would usually be a one-sided mention, but they also did, so they put that alongside the speculative stuff of their mating ritual, and they really turned it into a spectacle of a scene.
Yeah, that's another kind of a bit of a fun bit of speculative behavior. It's you know how in old paleo art, like long neck plesiosaurs were like shown kind of like with their heads raised above the water like snakes.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of been shown that they couldn't actually do that. Their necks were much too stiff.
So right. Well, if their necks were too floppy, I mean, they just break their necks anytime they get some good speed in the water.
Well, yeah, exactly. They needed to be streamlined in order to go in the water. Thus, they had really stiff necks. So it would have been very difficult for them to keep their long necks out of the water. So the idea that they would basically, as kind of like a display to show how strong and fit they were, that they would try to raise their necks as far above the water as they could, is actually a very interesting bit of speculative behavior.
And, well, there's lots of animals that in relation to water do some kind of display.
Yeah.
Not exactly like that, but similar, where it's it is a display of look how much I can rise above the others. And also like to mention that when the plesiosaurs were fighting the mosasaur, so I've never personally witnessed dolphins in deep water like that fighting sharks, and I'm guessing that's where they took that scene from, like the idea of that scene.
Yeah, I
But
definitely think that was the case.
yeah,
There.
but
What's
also I
interesting
gotta say, huh?
about mosasaurs is they actually were were truly lizards. They were they're kind of debating whether they're closer related to monitor lizards or closer related to snakes. But we know they came from that general family as modern lizards, which
Right,
made
and
that
they mentioned that in the show, which is pretty good.
yeah, which made them the biggest lizards that ever lived.
Right.
But
But one thing I
but
got to
by the
mention:
way,
have you ever seen like sparrows in a group having to fight a hawk or something?
yeah,
Yeah, with the way the plesiosaurs in the water were fighting the mosasaur is very much like that. And I got to say, like, because the plesiosaurs really did look like they were flying through the water.
right.
All right, sorry. So what were you saying?
What was that? Yeah, yeah. And as mentioned in the episode, we found like the tooth of other mosasaurs in the skulls of numerous mosasaurs. So we know from
Right,
that these were they lived a pretty violent life and they would violently attack each other.
right. And what I really did like about that, the mosasaur, like when we were following along with him, one of my favorite scenes was the being picked clean by like the shrimp and the cleaner fish,
Yeah,
because like it is almost undeniable that mosasaur did that just purely because it was a a water creature, a saltwater creature, because
right.
nearly all of them do that. And so it was,
That's very common animal behavior. You'll like see like small fish who will willfully go into the mouth of a giant shark. And you think this is like suicide, but the shark lets them go in and pick its teeth clean.
yeah, like you and me with a piece of steak or something stuck in our teeth, like that's gonna get gross and rot. Same for him.
Yeah.
And um, but one thing they added that was really neat was like the shedding of skin over time because he was a true reptile, and having, I think that was a practical effect where they got
It was a practical effect. And that many of those fish they're picking on that and the shrimp, those were real fish and real shrimp. And that's what I was saying. I was saying it. This show amazingly, perfectly blended, really great computer animation. Probably some of the best I've ever seen from a television program, and blended it
right.
together with real world environments and a few practical effects, and all comes together incredibly seamlessly.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, that mosasaur scene, I thought it was a practical effect just because it was so good. And a lot of those creatures, I mean, those fish and crustaceans, cleaner crustaceans especially, they've been around that long, so that was pretty awesomely spot on.
Right. Well,
Although I gotta say, one of the like the intro for the first episode, uh, Coast, that kind of actually really got me though.
the baby Tyrannosaur.
Oh, oh, and then Mama looks back and just for takes a moment to look back, even though she knows there's nothing she can do.
Yeah,
That
it, wa-
was a good scene.
it was. Yeah, I remember there was that line in The Land Before Time while tyrannosaurs can't swim with those scrawny arms, and I'm like, snakes can swim, they have no arms. Why the hell would
Right.
tyrannosaurs having small arms prevent it from swimming?
Well, another thing they pointed out was like nearly all of these dinosaurs have hollow bones and air sacs in them.
Yeah.
So like they're not drowning.
Yeah, the animal could definitely be born. I mean, Tyrannosaurus was definitely not an aquatic animal. It wasn't like built to like chase
God
prey
no.
underwater. But swimming island to island, I don't see any reason why I couldn't have done that on the occasion. Ostriches do it, and
Dude, we have found camels like 60 miles out into the ocean just swimming along to an island.
yeah. So
So
animals do that. Or another thing, a few creatures were the Florekian terror birds that. that basically they originated in South America, and then but some of them made it to North America, but even before that, North and South America were fully connected.
Right.
So
yeah.
They were already flightless, so they couldn't have flown there. The only explanation for how they could have gotten there so soon is if they swam from island to island.
Right. Little island hoppers, which, I mean, birds are shockingly good swimmers, even the derpy looking ones.
Right.
And
kind of the body structure of the terror birds, obviously they were smaller, but other than that, they kind of had a similar way of swimming as a tyrannosaur would.
Right. Only real big difference was how high up their head would be set.
Right.
And most of them anyway. Just because, smaller body, you don't have to be so squat. You get so big like a tyrannosaur, there's only so many distinctive body looks you can do before you break yourself.
Right.
But no, it was really interesting that they showcased that, and like that kind of behavior 100% happened back in that age, and the taking the children while they're still alive to an island where there's not a lot of large predators to mess up the rest of her brood. That's something we see today with some animals. They isolate their children until they can learn.
Right.
But yeah, so that was just really good scene. And one of my favorite was when one of the little baby tyrannos, and something they showcased but they didn't mention was the theory of niche partitioning, because we don't have a ton of small dinosaur fossils. And so it's believed by a lot of paleontologists at this point that the reason we don't really see that is because baby dinosaurs would take up the role of small and medium-sized predators.
Right, and we know that tyrannosaurs, when they were younger, they had kind of different bodily proportions than the adults. We've never really found a tyrannosaur hatchling, but we found like a juvenile.
I believe we did X-ray one egg at one point.
No, I don't think that. No, we haven't found an egg, but we did.
No, that was a relative of the T-Rex, not T-Rex.
Yeah. But we did find a juvenile. I remember there were some people who. I don't know if you remember this really, really terrible paleontology show from the late 2000s, Jurassic Fight Club.
I saw one episode of that. Yeah, I remember that.
They did one episode where they have there was some paleontologists who thought Nanotyrannus wasn't a young T-Rex, that it was. I'm sorry, that they thought the young T-Rex was like a different species, and they called it Nanotyrannus. And they did this stupid episode where Nanotyrannus is like the serial killer of the Cretaceous, and it's like and tries to like hunt T-Rex children.
What?
Yeah,
that's
and
hilarious.
The T-Rex children, of course, look like miniature versions of the adults, and then the mom. And for some reason, even though the two parents are raising the chicks together, for some reason they both go hunting at the same time instead of having one of them guard the nest the way like every other bird does.
Right. The entire point of raising children with another person or another animal is so the other animal can watch them for you. There's literally no other reason to do it.
Yeah. The mother comes back and sees the nano attacking her babies. Instead of running away as any creature would when faced with a predator 10 times its size who's like out for blood, the thing like tries to like dodge between the parents' legs and shit, and it ends about as well as you think it would, where the Tyrannosaur kills the fucking thing. Like, this is so stupid.
Oh, hey, did you tweet out the link to the video yet?
Yeah, I did.
All right. Oh, there it is. It just loaded.
Yeah, you can tweet it out in anywhere you want to get more people watching if you want. But
God, that sounds like a derpy show. Early 2000s was a weird transition time.
2000.
Wait, that was late.
But it's the fucking History Channel. It's the South Park. I remember, you're watching the History Channel, where the truth is history.
Right. Dude.
Honestly, we should be grateful the show didn't claim that Allosaurus built the pyramids.
Don't give them ideas.
Yes.
But no,
But really bringing up that show and an example of how really bad paleo documentaries have often had the animals behave in very unnatural and stupid ways, as opposed to Prehistoric Planet, where every single thing any of these creatures did throughout the entire series all felt like plausible animal behavior.
Right. Well, that's the thing, and like even in things that were like with the titanosaurs. Now, I don't know the research up on titanosaurs enough, but I don't think we have much on them. That was the most speculative, but even then, it wasn't that bad. And it like,
I think it was good speculation. Well, if talking about the throat sacs, well,
yeah.
we know that they have like air sacs in their bones in order to help dispense out their weight. It's one of the ways they're able to get so damn big.
Right.
So the idea that they would have used that for some of those air sacs for displays is entirely plausible.
No, it's definitely plausible. It's just I don't believe, because I know that Titanosaur isn't that well studied. We only have, I think, a few bones compared to what we should.
Well,
but
I mean, do we have like firm evidence or firm proof that they had the throat sacs? No, it's speculation.
Right. But even then, like, we do see that in birds, and even though obviously that whole branch of dinosaurs is very disconnected from birds, a lot of the people, we have discovered a surprising amount of dinosaurs in that family with feathers. So it is within the realm of possibility. I mean,
absolutely. Honestly, the Titanosaur fight, the fight between those two dreadnoughts, maybe my favorite scene.
Oh, that was great. And it was like giraffes, except that they also had the claws and the ability to rear up. And that's what I really liked about that, is they took something that we know for a fact it's almost guaranteed that Titanosaurs fought like that. Like the neck thing, like giraffes, because every long-necked animal that we've seen does that.
Well, I actually thought the way they fought resembled more the fighting of elephant seals than it did giraffes.
Right. Well, it was like a mix of giraffes and elephant seals. Actually, that's a great example.
Yeah, you know how when two male elephant seals, they'll rear up and just bash into each other like that, and they're fucking huge. I mean, elephant seals can weigh over four fucking tons. They're a massive animal.
Oh God, have you ever seen the videos of elephant seals on people's boats?
Yeah, they're enormous animals. And but they will be able to rear up way into the air just like that, and then they will just bash into each other real hard, and they'll be covered in blood in the end of the fight, and until one of them just can't fight anymore and gives up.
Right, and so what it really seems like to me is that they did elephant seals is a great example. They combined that with giraffes because they were doing the neck headbutting thing that giraffes do,
right?
And like it really was a realistic fight. Like definitely that's what dinosaurs would do.
Yeah, and I like how it kind of subverts your expectations with a lot of its portrayals. Like sauropods have always kind of been portrayed in media as kind of these gentle, majestic giants, while the carnivores are just kind of portrayed as monsters that are just out to kill everything in their path. And I like how it subverts expectations in both parts. Like we see like carnivores often doing like mating displays or what have you, or just taking care of their young, and we see the sauropods engage in a brutal and violent conflict to kind of just show these animals were more complex than that. I mean, Tyrannosaur was a fearsome predator. It certainly it was an incredibly powerful creature that killed a lot of things, and sauropods most of the time they did just gently feed, but there was more to these animals.
Right. Well, also, like the largest animals on land, the largest herbivorous animals do tend to get into like weight-based battles, pushing, shoving matches and stuff. And so I always found it silly.
Elephants fight with each other for dominance. Not like that. They don't usually rear up on their high lanes. They just usually bash their heads into each other.
Right. Well, they don't have the hollow bones and more oxygen. Like there was more oxygen back then. So, you kind of get away with more silliness back then. And just like their anatomical structure, the way their body is built from what we understand is just naturally lighter. But and the way their hips were placed and stuff just kind of made itself better for that. But it's just, you are right. Like, they made sure that you understood, like, these are wild animals. They're not a caricature where you can just walk up and pet a happy little Titanosaur. No. Like, he's going to step on you and laugh.
Yeah, and one of the big differences between Prehistoric Planet and Walking with Dinosaurs, and I don't know, I kind of debate with myself whether this is a good or a bad thing. Walking with Dinosaurs did have a much stronger narrative. Well, each episode basically kind of had a main character, a main animal, and it would kind of follow throughout a time period and encounter other creatures that the show would showcase. Like the second episode, like you follow a female Diplodocus. You see her mom lay her as an egg. You see her hatch. Then you see her kind of grow throughout the first 10 years of the animal's life, and she's kind of the main character of the episode. It's kind of more narrative focus, whereas Prehistoric Planet, none of the episodes like had like a main character. It was pretty much just various short segments.
Right. And I think that was them trying to like get across the point of like how diverse the environment was back then. Cause like a lot of people watch like a lot of dinosaur documentary stuff makes it seem like all of Earth was basically the same, for 150 million years. It was basically the same. And that's just, it's not true now, and that's never been true, and it's weird for them to do that. And so I think this was them kind of flexing their bigger budget and their more diverse understanding of the world since their first BBC, since Walking with Dinosaurs.
Yeah, I don't know what Prehistoric Planet's exact budget was, but just looking at it, I'm guessing it was very substantial. And if they managed to do that on a small budget, more power to them, because they did a great job with whatever money.
For real, for real. If that was not if the season didn't take at least as much as a normal Marvel budget, wow.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, I mean, Apple TV Plus's most expensive show in the past was $15 million per episode, and I highly doubt Prehistoric Planet.
Oh, really? You got a point there, huh? Let me check their budget real quick.
So yeah, it probably was something less than 15 million per episode, but that's still pretty damn good. Like I said,
dude, if they did that for only like 10 million per episode or so, that would be impressive.
Right. I mean, the CGI itself, I mean, it's not quite as good as like the recent Jurassic Park movies, just ignoring like the designs, the scientific accuracy, and just the CGI. Yeah, it's not as good as like a $200 million movie, but for something that was produced for television, it's really damn good.
Oh, it's so good. I cannot find anything on their budget.
No, I couldn't either, but the decision to set the entire series in at the very end of the Cretaceous, that doesn't intentionally limit them. Like, there are so many creatures from previous eras, so many dinosaurs that they couldn't use in the show because of the time period it's set. You can't.
Well, also near the late Cretaceous period, like, I don't know, like the more persnickety and annoying people might not like the like, oh, we keep seeing similar dinosaurs that are just different species pop up. But near the end of the late Cretaceous, there was actually even before the meteorite, there was large scale extinctions of dinosaurs across the planet. So there was kind of a big sorting of dinosaurs where they did become very much similar across the entire planet.
Well, not
obviously
really,
not entirely.
Well, not really, because keep in mind the continents had been separated for a while then. For example, like different species of Tyrannosaur tended to dominate in the northern continents in Asia and North America. Pretty much wherever they were, they pretty much dominated. But there were no no tyrannosaurs in any of the southern continents because tyrannosaurs were never able to spread there before the continents split.
No, that's true, but there was across the entire planet, there was actually a very large and noticeable decrease in biodiversity of dinosaurs, at least in the fossils that we can find.
They used to think that, but from what I read, actually, that's not really the case. They found this one site that was that was dated right before the extinction that showed a pretty prosperous environment.
So just an odd gap in the fossil record, I'm guessing. Then that happens a shocking amount of time.
There's always going to be gaps in the fossil record. Like I was watching one video on PBS Eons on the evolution of lizards, and it said the oldest fossil that can be definitively said to be a lizard was 215 million years old. Want to know what the second oldest fossil was?
Like 150.
165 million years old. So
yeah.
So a 50 million year time gap. There must have been lizards around during that time period, but we haven't found a single one of their fossils.
Oh, dude, there's a tree in Australia that I think has disappeared from the fossil record for something like 130 million years, something insane, and it's still alive. Like they only realized that in like the 1980s that this is the exact same tree as in the fossil record. Everything structurally is the exact same thing.
Right. So no matter what time period you pick from back then, you're only going to have access to like 1% of the genre that actually were around back then.
Sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself.
And that does kind of limit you. This is kind of just a mild nitpick for the series, but some of the jumping around was a little jarring and unclear. For example, in the forest episode, it jumps right to the Triceratops, right to the Carnotaur mating dance scene. If you didn't know any better, like somebody watched that without any knowledge of dinosaurs, you probably think that this was like the same environment, but this was on two different continents. Carnotaurus lived in South America. Triceratops lived in North America, which at the time were separated. But it never really makes that clear.
Well, also, one thing I'd like to point out, still on the desert episode.
Yeah.
I really liked that the scene where they had the lizard scuttling around on T-Rex trying to get to the flies on his. Was it T-Rex? No, it wasn't.
It was a Tarbosaurus, a close relative.
Tarbosaurus. Yeah, on the Tarbosaurus. I'm going to need your help with the names because I'm bad with them.
All right.
But trying to get into the lizards on Tarbosaurus's eyes.
Yeah. We see another example of the show blending real world and practical effects and CGI really well.
Really? Nice.
That was a real lizard they used, and they have it like picking flies off of a prop that they kind of added computer animation to it to make it all seamlessly blend together really well.
Imagine being the guy who has to wait for that lizard to walk in the exact way.
Well, it's someone who watches a regular real Attenborough documentaries will recognize that that scene will be familiar because there's a scene in his Africa series that followed this little lizard hunting flies on the back of a pride of lions while they're sleeping.
Right, I was going to say that's something we actually see in the wild. I remember that now. With these little tiny lizards being ballsy as hell, walking on predators, even though, like, hey, you're a snack, buddy.
Well, to be honest, the lizard wouldn't be a snack because it's so tiny compared to the Tarbosaurus that the Tarbosaurus wouldn't even notice it.
Oh yeah, for sure in that case.
Yeah, that little lizard's only like 3-4 inches long. The Tarbosaurus is like a massive 5-ton predator. Tarbosaurus are actually they're closely related to Tyrannosaurus enough that there was some scientific debate whether they actually are different genera or whether Tarbosaurus should just be another species of Tyrannosaurus. There's been some debate on that, but most seem to fall into it being a closely related genus. but a separate genus nonetheless.
Yeah, it's hard to tell that kind of stuff when I don't know how complete the Tarbosaurus fossil record is, but I'm going to guess it's not perfect.
And no
But
creature is it perfect.
well, except Tyrannosaurus. People were so hot and ready for that we have a near perfect fossil record of them.
Well, we do have a few
Well,
specimens.
we have near perfect fossils of them, I should say.
There was actually a recent paper published that said that there actually were 3 species of Tyrannosaurus. It wasn't just Tyrannosaurus rex, but there was also Tyrannosaurus imperator and Tyrannosaurus regina.
Tyrannosaurus imperator sounds like a badass.
It does, but I'm not really convinced by his arguments because the differences between these two these specimens don't necessarily have to be signs that these are different species. It could be that they're different ages. It could be that they're it could be sexual dimorphism, difference between males and females.
It could be regional
really tell.
diversity that has minor differences. You know, we see that today with seagulls that are all the same species across the entire continent, except they'll have minor differences in like wingspan and stuff like that.
Right.
Because just the way the winds blow and the nutrients of the fish and the kind of moves they need to do, they'll be the exact same species, but ones will have larger wings because they need to fly further, and ones will have smaller wings because they need to do tighter movements.
Right. And
So,
the one from the north, Nanusaurus, is also a close relative of both Tarbosaurus and Tyrannosaurus rex.
But also, let's see here.
And that was another one of my favorite sequences: the hunt in the snow, the Pachyrhinosaurs, and those
Yes,
those Nanusaurus stalking them in the snow. Great sequence.
But I do love. One thing I really did love was when the blizzard came and and both the predator, the hunted and the hunter, both understood like neither of us are doing anything right now. They just like huddled down because that again that is behavior. I'm going to keep coming back to this, but it's true. That is behavior we see. Like animals will be hunting, and they'll both get trapped in the mid hunt by blizzards, and they just stop.
Right.
And
well, one possible mild inaccuracy there is it bases the Nanusaurus on the size of the specimen we found, but a very recent study suggests that that specimen was a juvenile, and thus Nanusaurus probably was larger and more robust than how it's portrayed
really?
here. But you could justify that by saying that the ones in this show are juveniles.
Yeah, that's even very possible considering that, frankly, younger predators tend to like team up more than older ones do. Older ones that are like semi-pack predators will hang out more often while they're younger, and then they're more likely to be isolationist as they get older. Like cheetahs, when they're younger, cheetahs will work together in groups of up to 4.
Yeah.
But 4 is rare, but that does happen. But as they get older, cheetahs are almost entirely isolationist outside of a few rare cases of siblings.
Right. So you can just kind of justify that less as an inaccuracy and more saying that they are that they're juveniles. So it can still work.
Right. But also with the Ice World one, I absolutely loved the scene with that thieving little ornithomimus.
Yeah, ornithomimus.
Yeah, they're building the nest, and I do like the way they did the nest because I do believe, if I remember correctly, we do have fossils of their nest, and they're a pretty wide. Ornithomimus is a pretty wide-ranging species.
Yeah,
and they did have, and I may be wrong, but I think I'm right, rather large nests like that, and we do see animals today where they're in colder environments or they're in environments with heavy temperature fluctuations and especially in Africa, because Africa savannah will get cold as can be at night, and then 110 degrees in the day, where birds and Ornithomimus is really close to the bird line.
Yeah, it's a Maniraptor. So yeah.
Right. And this species of bird in Africa, can't remember its exact name, but it's a really, really old species, and it comes from a really, really old line. And they'll make gigantic mulch nest to keep eggs the same temperature throughout the night. And so that then a lot of dinosaur nests were really big. So that's probably a very common behavior from dinosaurs that were nesting instead of turtle strategy.
Yeah.
And
It seemed to be based on like what some penguins do. I remember this other Attenborough documentary about rockhopper penguins who will kind of like build nests made out of rocks to impress the females, the males, and they'll often steal like eggs from each other. They'll
right,
steal pebbles and rocks from each other.
Right. So it seemed like they were basing the nest off the ones, because they did mention that the rotting foliage will act as a temperature regulator, and that they'll feed from each other, and it also has to be big and pretty for the females. So it seemed like a combination of the rockhoppers and these birds in Africa. I'm mentioning, cannot remember their name right now for the life of me.
Right.
But I just loved the scene of him trying to run up and steal foliage and getting caught and chased off. And he looks back like he's upset, like how dare you chase me away?
How dare you prevent me from stealing your stuff?
That's right. Meanwhile, the other one's just yelling hippity hoppity, get off my property.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing that I really need to praise about every single design is how they avoided shrink wrapping the creatures.
Oh yeah,
that's a common thing. Like even in good documentaries of the past, like Walking with Dinosaurs was absolutely guilty of shrink wrapping its creatures. Basically,
the Diplodocus in Walking with Dinosaurs was hilariously shrink wrapped.
That wasn't even. I wouldn't say it was the worst example. Like probably like if you look closely at like Allosaurus's face, or even most of the creature's face, you can often see the shape of the skull, the venestra. The holes in the skull. You can see that in the living design. You would not be able to see that in a living animal unless the thing was starving to death.
Right, like these are malnourished little dinos everywhere. What's going on?
Yeah, I guess all these creatures must be starving, or you're shrink wrapping your creatures.
Right.
Darren Naish, the main science advisor of the of Prehistoric Planet, he wrote a book back in 2013 called All Yesterdays, and kind of as a bit of a joke, he kind of mocked shrink wrapping of prehistoric animals by like taking modern creatures and making erroneous interpretations of what they would look like based on their bones that were incredibly shrink wrapped.
He's the one he's been going viral for months now, actually. Pictures from his books, like what a rabbit looks like, what a rabbit skeleton looks like, what paleontologists will think a rabbit looks like.
Yeah, I love a fun one was when he said that he shows a baboon of as future paleontologists would think it, and it's this kind of reptilian creature with a venomous bite, because baboons have kind of this groove along their teeth that we know that baboons are not venomous because we live with them alive, but he said that a future paleontologist could falsely interpret this as a sign that baboons were venomous.
And frankly, you couldn't blame the paleontologist for making that jump, because there's lots of animals today, especially snakes, but there's and that they have grooves instead of, not a lot of snakes, but there are that have grooves while the venom comes from the glands by the bottom of the teeth. So it would be a silly interpretation, but it's one that would make sense to somebody that's never seen a baboon.
Yeah, and it's basically meant to make you think about the way extinct animals are portrayed. That kind of like shrink wrapping them gives them kind of a weird and monstrous appearance,
Right.
Whereas a Prehistoric Planet, there's a lot of flesh on their bones. You look at the Tyrannosaur; it's got a barrel chest. Its face looks very fleshy. and it has lips covering its teeth. Because
He's got a dad bod.
Yeah, the dad bod, exactly.
We need to create a meme of like Chad dad bod Tyrannosaur versus shrink wrap Tyrannosaur.
Yeah, those memes have already been all over the internet. But,
Oh, nice.
Yeah, another thing, Walking with Dinosaurs seem to be heavily influenced by Jurassic Park in this regard. Is the Walking with Dinosaurs gave the dromaeosaurs lips, but the Rex not? Why the hell would that be?
Right.
Why did it do this? Because Jurassic Park did it that way. That's literally the only reason.
Because kids will recognize it.
Right. And want to know what's also funny is early in the production of Jurassic Park, the Tyrannosaur was originally going to have lips. The earliest design, the earliest like clay model they made of the Tyrannosaur did have lips, but they decided that it looked scarier without them.
It's a 40-foot, 50-foot monster. It's scary no matter what you do to it.
Yeah, but with those teeth exposed all the time, they figured that made it just a bit scarier.
I do find it hilarious that in the original Jurassic Park, during the rain scene, they had to take breaks to dry them off with towels, and they couldn't use heating dry because it was all like foam and stuff.
Yeah.
And so we got these hilarious scenes of this gigantic animatronic being dried off on stage.
It was a fantastic looking animatronic, but it makes there was a good video, good paleontology channels. This guy called Ben Thomas, he did a video on whether or not tyrannosaurs had lips. He kind of looked at the evidence both ways. The arguments against lips just didn't really make a lot of sense. Mostly one was that their closest relatives with teeth are crocodiles who are lipless, right? And that's pretty much it. But another one was when someone said that their teeth were too big. Oh, someone else is in the stream. Who's this?
Hello.
Night Shift 1000. Did you invite him?
No. I think this is the same link that you posted in that one group. Did Night Shift watch Prehistoric Planet?
I'll let him in, sure. Hi Night Shift. How you doing?
Oh, hey, what's up, guys?
Hey man,
what were your thoughts on Prehistoric Planet?
Oh gosh, I only saw like snippets of it. I thought it looked pretty good though.
Dude, it's really good. You should watch it.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness.
What snippets did you watch though, man?
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, you did post the stream link in the group chat.
Yeah,
right.
But I was kind of hoping to find more people who'd seen the Prehistoric Planet. But what parts did you see?
Watch the scenes with what was it? The ceratopsians. Watch the ones with sauropods.
Which ceratopsians?
Not much more than that.
Which ceratopsians did you watch? The ice ones or the forest?
I think ice ones. I think it was the Arctic. I'm not sure though.
Those would be the Pachyrhinosaurs.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Pachyrhinos. Yeah, I liked that scene myself. We actually discussed it earlier.
Cool.
Yeah, and Loud brought up a bit of an inaccuracy in that. What was the name of the predators, Loud?
Nanosaurus. Well, it's not really an inaccuracy. It's that Nanosaurus probably was bigger than and bulkier than how it's shown here, but because they think the fossil they found of it was a juvenile, but that can be explained because you can say that the ones in the show were juveniles.
Okay,
right.
In terms of actual known inaccuracies in Prehistoric Planet, it kind of shows the march of science. We actually know that the Carnotaur scales, the way they're in rows, is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There was a recent study that was published in October 2021 that kind of showed that their osteoderms were more randomly placed. They didn't go in rows like that. The problem with it was that by the time that was published, the model was already finalized and they couldn't change it.
Right.
So
That makes
sense.
not the fault of the creators whatsoever, because the show's been in production for 3 years, and that study hadn't been published till the show was almost finished.
Yeah. Well, another thing I wanted to mention, speaking of ceratopsians, the Triceratops in the forest episode, whenever they go, so the Triceratops in that episode, they're walking around and they're eating, hazardous, poisonous plants.
Mhm.
And then they go out of their way to go into a cave that has clay, revealed clay, because the clay has, healing effect, anti-poisonous effects for them. That is actual behavior we see in that exact same area from animals, where they'll go deep into caves for clay to help them to digest poisonous plants. We see that behavior today.
Yeah, well, there was a video of elephants doing the same thing, and that was clearly what that was based on.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask, did they ever okay, so I heard there was a portrayal of tyrannosaurs. There was an episode that portrayed tyrannosaurs. How were they portrayed, as scavengers or as hunters?
Both.
Both.
A
Okay,
bit of
all
both,
right.
which is probably accurate. I mean, people like, I think one study basically proved they could only run at a top speed of what, 20, no, not even, like 12, 15 miles an hour.
Yeah, but the notion that tyrannosaurs were obligate scavengers that couldn't hunt has been completely disproven.
Yeah,
right.
They found listen. They found a tyrannosaur's tooth embedded in the tail vertebrae of an admonosaur, and it had healed over. The tooth.
Yeah.
There's no way that the only explanation for that is if the tyrannosaur attacked it while it was alive, and the admonosaur got away and kept the tyrannosaur's tooth in its.
Yeah. Well, it was really funny to me was all the people who were like, "Oh, look, Tyrannosaur is slow, therefore obligate scavenger." That was always hilarious to me from the very beginning. Because, like, they're dinosaurs. They're all like 30, 50 feet. Some of them 80 feet. They're all going to be slow. Like, I guarantee you, other than the small ones, we could outrun, all of us here, no matter our health conditions, can outrun most of the large dinosaurs. Guarantee you.
Well, Tyrannosaur probably wasn't that slow. It could probably run like 17, 18 miles per hour pretty easily.
I think that's if he was motivated.
Right.
Because once you get that...
Jurassic Park's 32 mile per hour figure is definitely bullshit. It could not run that
fast. No. Just the speed with the force and that weight would just snap his pelvis like a twig.
Yeah. Although I did hear there was one study that showed that their legs were muscular enough that they could get up to speeds of around 20 miles per hour or something like that if they were really motivated.
Yeah, that's I can see 20 miles per hour, but 32 miles per hour of a figure in Jurassic Park is nonsense.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, hey, I'm looking this up right now, and actually, there's a lot of interesting information. T-Rex maximum top speed, according to recent data, it says 17 miles per hour. So motivated, he could probably do 20. Like if he was terrified or starving.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's possible the younger ones could have ran faster than the adults because they were kind of more slim and had longer legs as youngsters. So maybe a juvenile T-Rex could get up to over 25, but when it got older and reached full size, maybe it couldn't anymore.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There's a
sorry about that.
But like the whole notion of a Tyrannosaur being an obligate scavenger, that was mostly pushed by a guy named Jack Horner back in like the late 90s. That was kind of his pet theory, and it's been amazingly discredited by numerous lines of evidence. Well, what was great is this one good paleontology channel, a guy named Red Raptor Writes. He did a fun video debunking the everything Jack Horner says about the creature and how stupid it all is. Like, it has a clip of Jack Horner saying because Tyrannosaur with the arms were small and wouldn't have been much of a hunter. And I'm like, yeah, what animal could kill without large arms with just its mouth? I don't know, a shark, a snake, a wolf. He just goes down the whole line of animals that use their mouths as their main killing weapon.
Nearly every predator uses their mouth as their main killing weapon. If they have claws that are good at that, even then that's a secondary because they still need to stand up.
Yeah.
So that notion is incredibly stupid, especially since Tyrannosaurus Rex had the most powerful jaw of any land animal that ever lived.
Oh yeah.
It did not need big arms to make a kill. If you were in its jaws, you were fucked.
Oh yeah.
Right, and I will add this much that large, powerful jaw muscles are like on land animal, like primarily land animals, are usually a sign of scavengers because you got to break the bones. Yeah. Obviously, the exception being like the crocodile. Even so, like you said, like it doesn't matter. He can just crush your bones anyway. And 17 miles an hour. Let me look at this real quick here because it does have other speeds for dinosaurs. Was let me see here. All right, Triceratops was top speed 20 miles an hour. Right, you can catch him. If you're in a dense forest and he has to bob and weave, he's not as good at it as you are because you got two legs. You definitely could catch him.
Yeah,
you got Brontosaur here, 12, 19.
To catch prey that can run faster than they do just by kind of catching it off guard. And I'm sure though Tyrannosaur did fail a lot more often than it succeeded at hunting. There's no question. That's the case for almost every predator.
So I think there's like three predators that I know of that succeed more than they, not including domestic cats, that succeed more than they fail. And it's like, I think it's like dingoes, jackals, and a tiny cat species that's wild.
Right. And it definitely did scavenge. I'm sure if like something was dead and it could scavenge, I'm sure it would have taken that opportunity.
Oh yeah, pretty much all predators do that even nowadays.
Yeah. If it's fresh enough, why not? Might as well have.
Yeah. But let's say there's nothing dead around it. It's gonna hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it can certainly make kills. Well, what's also really funny about it is Jack Horner, the guy who was doing that, he kind of got forced out of the university he was in for an inappropriate relationship with one of his students. Kind of a predatory relation. They thought it was kind of predatory. The student who was much younger than him, and the guy who was like debunking him ends the review by saying, "Jack Horner certainly isn't the only predator here."
That's great.
I'm like, that is savage, man.
Just brutal.
Absolutely brutal.
Did the shows go into the theory that tyrannosaurs were actually an invasive species on North America at all?
No, they were more like documentary style. They didn't comment on invasives.
But I mean, that is kind of true. The fact that like I remember that it is believed that Tyrannosaur's ancestors, from their common ancestor with Tarbosaurus, migrated in Asia, migrated into North America, and kind of outcompeted the previous North American predators, who also were kind of tyrannosauroids, like Gorgosaurus and Albertosaurus, and Tyrannosaurus just kind of came on and outcompeted them. But that is actually believed to be true, yes.
Right.
And it wouldn't be surprising at all. I mean, that's been happening all throughout animal species forever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But, no, another scene I wanted to mention that I really loved was the Quetzalcoatl in the forest when she laid her eggs, and another one came up and ate her eggs like a bastard.
Oh yeah,
animals do that. Animals can be assholes.
Oh, they're just awful.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it gets even worse with some of the larger ones. Sometimes they'll wait for the eggs to hatch, and while the dinosaurs are still babies, they'll just go in and raid the fucking nests. And I mean, that wasn't in prehistoric. That wasn't in this series, but it was in another one that showed like the Argentinasauruses, It basically showed a big Argentinosaurus nest, and it showed a bunch of theropods, and they were going through the nests after the babies were born. They were feeding on the hatchlings.
I
And
think
they were
you're referring to Planet Dinosaur, right?
Yeah, that one. Yes, Planet Dinosaur.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was actually like real. That was actually, I mean, and then they were going through the same. They were being a bunch of bastards, and they were going through the same exact. They were doing the same exact type of thing. It's
Well,
just, God damn, that's so nice.
It is believed that sauropods were what was that? R-type species that just laid a lot of eggs and didn't really take care of them.
Yeah, mass producers.
So probably only like 1 out of every 100 eggs they laid actually ended up ever becoming an adult sauropod.
Probably.
There was one, I believe it was Walking with Dinosaurs, where it's the same. I believe it's the same one where a sauropod accidentally gets whacked by an ankylosaur.
Oh yeah,
and I think so.
No, that you're thinking of a different episode. It's the Tyrannosaur that gets whacked by the ankylosaur.
No, there was one where a baby sauropod got whacked by either an ankylosaur or a stegosaur.
It was a stegosaur.
Yeah, because a theropod showed up and distracted everybody and panicked everybody.
Yeah,
and the stegosaur panicked because he saw movement.
Right, and that was also an example of Walking with Dinosaurs treating its subjects with respect and having them all engage in realistic animal behavior, particularly when the allosaur goes up to the stegosaur and it does a display and the allosaur backs down. There's no fight. A lesser show would have like taken this opportunity and let's fight. But no, that's how animals are. They will obviously fight in certain circumstances, but oftentimes they'll like try to get a rival to back down through a competitive display. And animals aren't the creatures that will kamikaze themselves to maintain their honor. If they don't think that they can win a fight or if it's not worth it, they'll back down.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. They're not like, this is why like humans doing intimidation displays to like bears work. They don't have a hospital. We do. We can take a swipe or two and it'll suck, but we can go to the hospital and live.
Yeah.
Back to that piece of shit History Channel documentary Jurassic Fight Club. There was one episode where I'm not fucking kidding. These like troop of allosaurs have this stegosaur half buried and dying, so they have enough food to last them for days. But because they're all fueled by bloodlust, they decide to leave their food and go attack these giant chimerosaurs for no fucking reason.
No, that reminds me of what was it, Jurassic World Extinction or whatever, the second one. Wow! And I mentioned this to you earlier, Loud. While the volcano is mid-explosion, all the herbivores are running for their lives, but all the predators are still freakishly trying to eat you.
Yeah,
and that's not what would be every dinosaur, even the starving ones, would be shitting bricks and running for the ocean. Like,
I love that the Tyrannosaur feels the need to save our main hero, Chris Pratt, for no fucking reason. It pinned the Carnotaur down, then do this awesome roar right as the volcano behind him. Why does he do this? To give a cool shot for the trailer. There's no other reason.
Right, like there's a volcano going off, buddy. Run. No animal is so dumb. It's going to continue to be a predator while it's in the middle of being burnt alive.
Right. And the worst part about it is Jurassic World Lost Kingdom. Right after the T-Rex basically saves the humans and kills the Carnotaurus, it's literally like she gives, what's his name? She gives the Chris Pratt character like a little look like, boom, I got this. It's literally like that. It's like,
wink, nod, I'm the hero.
It actually does not kill the Carnotaurus. The Carnotaurus actually walks. The Tyrannosaur bites it and holds it down with its foot, but leaves it alive for some reason. Why?
Really?
Yeah. Oh no! And then the other scene with the baryonyx in the cave. First
Mhm.
off, that's weird.
Oh, yeah.
Baryonyx were coastal dinosaurs, from what we know.
Mhm.
Why is he in this cave? And then like he gets lava on him, and he doesn't freak out and run the other direction. No,
Oh, yeah, don't you know lava only burns you a little bit, man?
just mild third-degree burns.
Yeah, I mean, just anyone.
Ugh.
I mean, anyone just can swim in lava and come out fine, unless they're like a pussy.
All right. It's,
But hey, back to the show though. Also, one thing I really loved here in the freshwater scene, they had the duck-billed dinosaur. What was his name?
That would be Deinonychus.
Yeah, the big fluffy boy. He was great. I loved the way he looked. So, like, I don't know how much they spent on that scene of just him in the water. That was really well done.
Yeah, what's interesting about Deinonychus is it's actually a very large Struthiomimus, so it's a relative of the Struthiomimus, but just way bigger. I don't know if it was as shaggy as the way they portrayed it, because usually really big animals that live in warm environments tend to lose most of their body hair, but this one's like really shaggy.
Well, that also depends about that, in that if he's hanging out in the water all the time, it would have a cooling effect, and the feathers would have a drying effect, like keeping him dry when he needs to walk around on land. So there could be a balance there. But
Yeah,
there
or
was
maybe
another.
it mentions that he's like menaced by insects. Maybe like the hair that he had was like to protect his body from the insects. I don't know.
Right. But also the scene with the plesiosaur relatives going into the brackish water, because it was a lot more lively and productive than the water that they were on at the coast.
Right.
That is a very common thing that you see. Bull sharks is the example everybody knows, where they'll be on a coast that it's winter or something where it's not as fertile at the time, and they'll go inland and they'll eat up there.
Yeah.
I believe the furthest inland shark we've seen is all the way up by St. Louis in the Mississippi River.
Right.
And there's some mild evidence of all the way up to the Great Lakes, but that's mild.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
But another thing I wanted to mention, and this was something that is behavior. I'm willing to bet that we have seen this behavior from dinosaurs. Not we have seen it, but like it did exist in dinosaurs, because it does actually exist in birds. Was in episode 5 when the forest fire happens. It wasn't a velociraptor, it was a velociraptor relative, right?
Archaeoraptor, I believe.
Yes, Archaeoraptor. He uses the smoke from after the fire with the still burning embers to defleece himself. And we do see that from birds they're not very predatory. They'll hang out in burning ash and the smoke because it will delouse you.
Yeah.
And similar thing with the was it an ankylosaurus, or was it? I think it was an ankylosaurus that started eating charcoal. That's behavior that we'll also see in animals today to help them basically detoxify their body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if that behavior exists today and the environment exists back then that behavior almost definitively existed back then in some animals.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, it may have been speculative, but if, Ankylosaurus being a massive herbivore, definitely, even if on accident, ate a lot of poisonous stuff. And so he definitely had some way of detoxifying.
Mm-hmm.
And
actually, there was a study that came out a few years ago that talked about how dinosaurs were probably high most of the time, because it wasn't just like poisonous plants. They were also eating like hallucinogenics, like like they were basically drugs. And
Nice.
so, yeah, it was saying that dinosaurs, they were probably stoned off their asses most of the time because they were eating plants like that. So, did it go into that at all? Did the special go into that or anything?
I don't think it
No.
all went into that. But
Okay, all right.
but really overall with the series, I love how the show isn't just these creatures killing or being killed. Like
Right.
back to Planet Dinosaur from 2011, that was kind of an interesting program. It like showcased some latest fossil find, but literally the entire series is just one chase scene after another.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, go ahead.
And that's pretty much the show. Plus the animation you could tell was made on a was made on a pretty
shoestring
low budget. And
Well-
that one, Prehistoric Planet, what I really liked is how it balanced their behavior. There are a couple hunt scenes. There are a couple of examples where creatures fight, but it's not the whole show. It made clear these animals didn't just have awesome battles to the death all the time, you know?
Oh, there's someone at
Right.
my door. I've got to go, guys.
All right, later, man.
I see ya.
So,
And one scene I really loved. It was Carnosaur, right? The mating dance scene.
Carnotaur, yes.
Carnotaur. It was adorable at first, where you're like, oh, he's a big badass. He can kick butt, and then it's like, and he doesn't have, very many methods of fancy display. Floppy little arms, and it started playing that music right with the floppy arms. It was adorable.
Yeah.
And then I felt so bad for him.
Birds of Paradise.
Right. But I feel so bad for him though, because he didn't get the girl and he tried so hard. And they even made him look nervous when she was at first sizing him up.
Yeah. He wanted to get laid, man. And
Yeah. And he's just there like he's doing his best. He's like, please love me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I feel for him.
Yeah.
He was a cutie.
In Dinosaur Revolution, Shonosaurus got high on shrimp. Someone saying, "Oh, hey, Aspie, good to see you, man."
Hey, Aspie.
Yeah. Dinosaur Revolution. That was another one that came out, I think, in 2011. It's a very frustrating program because it actually did, like, for the time, do some pretty cool designs. The animation ain't too bad. Like, there's some like good bits of speculation in the way it modeled them. But then it like has many moments where they were like really cartoonishly anthropomorphized. And I'm wondering, why'd you bother making accurate designs if you're going to have them behave like cartoon characters? Why not just make them look like the characters in The Good Dinosaur?
Right. There's some truth to that.
Well, from what I read about the program is it originally was not intended to be a documentary. It was intended just to be a bunch of like animated shorts about dinosaurs that weren't really primarily for education, but it was kind of retrofitted later into a documentary. That's why you kind of got the weird tonal shifts with that program.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the Walking with Dinosaurs movie from 2013 also kind of was fucked up for that reason. He didn't know what kind of movie it wanted to be, and it ended up pleasing nobody.
Which one?
The one from 2013, Walking with Dinosaurs, the movie.
Oh, yeah, that's true. No,
they added those horrible voiceovers, and it was just, oh god, painful to listen to.
No, one thing I will say that I was disappointed by was like the only time we ever saw a mammal was in the forest episode where they were fleeing and they got popped by a type of raptor.
I actually will agree. The biggest disappointment was not anything that was in the program, but it was on stuff that they missed, and that was a big thing that they missed.
Well, I'm really hoping that they kind of like turn this into like they model it after the old Walking with series, in that they do multiple installments. But I'm also where they focus on different types of creatures.
Yeah.
But I'm also really hoping that they stay in this Cretaceous era, because there really has not been enough light drawn to, for example, mammals in the Cretaceous era. And there is a shocking amount of animal the big three that are still alive today of mammal types.
Yeah.
Placentals, marsupials, and what do you call things like platypus?
Monotremes.
Monotremes. Like all those three families were alive and well in the Cretaceous, and especially late Cretaceous.
Yeah, actually, what's interesting, the creature that the Troodonid kills in it is actually from none of those three groups. It was a creature called from the metatubular family, which superficially looked like rodents, but they were not really like on any of those three lineages. They were believed to be a bit closer related to Therian mammals, aka marsupials and placentals, than they were to monotremes. But they were like a very early mammalian split. And what's interesting about them is they actually survived the Cretaceous mass extinction, and the last of them only died out like 20 million years ago.
Yeah, I was actually about to say, didn't they survive until shockingly recently? I think they're probably one of those.
They think maybe competition with actual rodents that like rodents outcompeted them.
Because they're probably one of the longest living mammal lineages out there.
Yeah, they were. But that one that gets killed by it is supposedly one of those. But that's never mentioned in the show.
Right. You can only assume it's. I only realized it was a mammal because I took a second look and I was like, hey, that's a mammal.
And that is the only time mammals appear in this entire series. And that is a bit of an oversight.
Dude, we had back then, there was mammals that were like extra large badgers that they have found a shocking amount of dinosaur skeletons in their gut.
You're thinking of Rhynchonemus.
Yes.
Rhynchonemus also was another kind of like non-Therian mammal lineage that's now extinct. But it didn't live in the late Cretaceous. It was earlier.
Oh, really? My bad. So wasn't there one in the late Cretaceous or the mid Cretaceous?
I think
was like
I think it was the mid Cretaceous, not the late Cretaceous.
But wasn't there another one that was like a platypus beaver thing? It had a flat tail, and it maybe even had I think they either said sonar or electrical sense.
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about sonar, but there was this one that from the Jurassic period that had like a beaver tail.
That's probably what it is.
Castiocorda, I believe it's called. It's
that's him.
The Jurassic beaver. Actually, that one's actually not a true mammal. It's a mammalia form. It was kind of like a split.
Really?
But a split. It split from the ancestors of true mammals. True mammals are considered the common ancestor of all living mammals and all their descendants. And that one was from like an earlier split from before that. So it's kind of a mammal and kind of not.
Really? I didn't realize that. Been a while since I read back up on it.
That was back in the Jurassic period.
Really? But anyway, we do know that the big three today and metatubulars and probably a few others of mammalia forms were around at the time, and I'd love for them to stay in that time period and do one where they like focus on those creatures, the mammals or in the mammalia forms, and then another one where they focus on. Man, there's another family that was around then too.
Crocodilians?
Well, that'd be nice, but they ought to do a third one.
Crocodiliforms back then. And those didn't appear in Prehistoric Planet at all. There was no crocodilians in the entire show.
Right, which is weird because they were big predators of dinosaurs. Some of them were literally bigger than most dinosaurs.
Yeah, I think because Deinosuchus, I think wasn't probably around by the very late Cretaceous. I think it died out around 70 million years ago. But so by 66 million years ago, I don't think it was still around. But it was a crocodile that was probably the most powerful predator on Earth. It might have been a bit bigger than Tyrannosaurus Rex, and and it had the most powerful bite of any creature. It was like over 40 feet long. They think
Right.
Deinosuchus, the animal that it didn't walk with dinosaurs, it ate them.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. Deinosuchus lived 82 to 73 million years.
Yeah,
So,
hence why
the early part of the late Cretaceous.
right. Hence why it's not a prehistoric planet, because it wouldn't have been around anymore.
Let me see. When was Sarcosuchus? It was
Oh,
he was
Sarcosuchus
much earlier.
was much earlier.
Much earlier. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, that one lived in Africa and pretty early in the Cretaceous. And well, Sarcosuchus actually was not like a true crocodilian. It was a crocodilo form, kind of
Right.
from an older lineage. But Deinosuchus actually was a true crocodilian. It was actually a relative of alligators, so it was essentially a giant gator.
Right. What's funny though is like it had a relatively more stout build, but it's so big that it still had all the reach in the world.
Yeah, imagine that thing. You see how like when a Nile croc like waits for wildebeest to cross and then nabs them. Probably Deinosuchus did that thing with dinosaurs were crossing the river.
Oh, you imagine? So what they ought to do is they ought to have a second season where they like. I would say the first. If I don't know how much they could spread it around and do it, but if they can't do it 2 more seasons, they need to do a second season where like first half.
There's so many other prehistoric time periods they could set like do a show like this and so many others.
Right, but in this show they were clearly building the world during that time.
Yeah.
In the late Cretaceous. It's what I think they ought to do is do a second season where like the first half they focus on mammals and mammalia forms of the time.
Yeah.
And then the second half of the season, they focus on like the grab bag oddballs and crocodilia forms and other things that existed at the time.
Yeah. Actually, I'd like if they do stay in this time period. What if like second season, the last episode would be Prehistoric Planet Apocalypse and focus on the asteroid impact. After building up this beautiful prehistoric world, just imagine if they ended that just by showing it all get destroyed.
No, man, that'd be like the third season or a series or a special series, like 2-part finale. And they just show like snippets of all the creatures throughout the world dealing with it. That'd be cool.
Yeah, it'd be brutally tragic and fascinating. Though actually, David Attenborough actually did. He released 2 dinosaur documentaries this year, and the other one was a Nova documentary that dealt with. It was all about the impact.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Last Days. I think you can watch it for free on the PBS app. There are bits of computer animation in it, but it's dramatically cheaper computer animation than what you see in Prehistoric Planet.
That's kind of to be expected, honestly.
So, but which is fine though, because not every documentary needs expensive high budget animation to be interesting. And this one was still very interesting. It kind of like it showed like various finds at this site that they believe in North Dakota that dated to around the time of the impact. They believe that because they found a fish there with little bits of molten glass in its gills, which they believe were shards of the impact.
Yeah, that's either shards of the impact or something that's similar enough you can study it and get pretty much the same kind of data.
That's what they were saying. It was it was a little bit because it rained hell on the entire planet. It exploded with the force of 1 billion Hiroshima bombs.
I'm actually going to download the PBS app on my TV right now.
I recommend giving that a watch. It's a pretty cool program. Yeah.
Can't find it. I'll search.
But like some of the evidence they found there is actually very interesting at the site.
What was the name of that one?
In Britain it was called Last Days of the Dinosaurs, but I think it was called Dinosaur Apocalypse when it aired on Nova.
Got to be so much cooler for America. I got to make the name so much cooler.
Yeah, I guess so.
But no, seriously, I would say like 10 out of 10 for Prehistoric Planet. Only thing I wish or they had or I hope they do is more focus on like mammals and oddball creatures that didn't fit into these categories that they already showed.
Yeah, I'll pretty much agree with that. Because I was thinking, what things could I complain about in this series, and I realized that every single thing was because was something it didn't show, not anything that was actually in the program. Which kind of, and if you're only complaining about shows that you wanted more, that's a pretty complimentary complaint.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And another thing that like I wish it had elaborated more on was the section at the end of the forest episode on Hashtag Island, because that's a very, very interesting place. It was modern Romania. It was an island at the time, and because a lot of creatures got stranded on this island, a lot of the dinosaurs shrunk. So there's kind of like miniature versions of groups of dinosaurs that were enormous on larger continents. That when they were stuck on this island with less food and resources, they shrank to a smaller size.
Right. That's something you see all the time. And yeah, so it was.
There was a sauropod, a titanosaur they found on the island. Titanosaurs are usually enormous. This one they think was fully grown. It weighed less than 2 tons. It weighed less than a rhinoceros.
Oh my God! Really?
Yeah. And Hapsagotrix, the giant pterosaur you see at the end, was essentially the top predator of the island because we haven't found any large predatory dinosaurs on that island. There probably weren't any.
Right. We have found that bird, that giant pteranodon there, though, right?
Yeah, Hapsagotrix, yes.
Yes, because I've heard of that island. I didn't know they found a tiny titanosaur, though.
Yeah, and a few other like miniaturized. You see those miniaturized dinosaurs at the end, but Attenborough doesn't really like talk about insular dwarfism, and that was a bit of a missed opportunity.
Right, that would have been. Because if you just mention insular dwarfism, most people have enough of a grammatic understanding, they'll instantly be like, oh, I get it. So even just an offhand comment about, look at this tiny creature.
Back in 2003, there was a Discovery Channel documentary called Dinosaur Planet. Not to be confused with Planet Dinosaur, those are 2 separate documentaries. And one episode kind of dealt with Hashtag Island and insular dwarfism, but it kind of didn't do it very well. The story of the episode involves kind of a normal size dromaeosaur from the mainland who kind of gets swept out at sea during a storm, and he lands on Hashtag Island, where he's kind of like he goes from kind of a lower run predator to like the top predator of the island.
Nice, good for him.
It's an interesting story. The problem is it doesn't really show insular dwarfism very well because it kind of like shows like all the creatures there, and a lot of them are completely made up, not ones they found on fossils at all. Just kind of like miniaturized versions of the mainland dinosaurs that are all like exactly to scale, miniaturized from where they were. That's not how insular dwarfism works. In fact, some animals marooned on islands actually get bigger.
Oh yeah, especially if they're already small animals. We've seen that with rabbits and other legomorphs, and in fact, giant legomorphs, were the exact reason why we first came up with that idea. Can't remember the guy's name.
Yeah, there was an owl they found on one of, I think it was on the Bahamas, that was like almost half as tall as a man.
No, it wasn't in the Bahamas. Actually, this is the same one because I actually watched that recently.
Wait, maybe I'm mixing that up. It wasn't in the Bahamas.
Well, it was on a mountaintop in Europe, and that's also where they found the giant rabbit. And it wasn't a mountaintop, but it was a mountain range. And they were like, "Why are all these giant and sometimes small animals on this little area range?" And this paleontologist who was looking into this, and this was back when I believe it was early 1900s or late 1800s. Can't remember the exact time, but we were still mid 1900s definitely. But we were still piecing a lot of this information together. And when he pieced together suspected and projected water levels, he realized this area where you found these giant rabbits and these giant owls, but at the same time, these other animals that were shockingly small. And that's what made him realize insular dwarfism. Because even though we had examples contemporary, I mean, we still have them. For some reason, nobody had pieced together that idea.
Right.
And there might be one in the Bahamas that was a giant one, because, islands.
There was, well, if you think about it, it makes evolutionary sense. For a titanosaur to become so small, well, you think about what are the advantages to being a big creature over a small creature. If you're big, you can travel. It's easier to travel places in search of food, and it's harder for predators to kill you. But if you're on an island where food's all close by and there are no large predators, why remain big?
Right. And, same thing with the animals that are usually prey that are small. There's not a bunch of predators, but there's plenty of food. Why not get big?
Yeah, it's interesting. And that, I kind of think it was a bit of a missed opportunity taking us to Hashtag Island, but so briefly and not really explaining it all that well.
Right? Yeah, sorry. But overall, just a really good series by Apple, BBC, and Attenborough. And no complaints other than please make a second season with more than just dinosaurs.
Yeah, I was absolutely blown away by it. I had not been that impressed since I was a kid watching Walking with Dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah. And even if they don't stay in the late Cretaceous for that, which I would prefer because it would add more depth to that age, yeah, I would still absolutely love it. I would still watch it.
I kind of want to see like a season, a show like this set in the Triassic period because there's so many weird creatures from that time.
Triassic was bizarre.
Yeah.
Imagine they need to do early Triassic this time when things were really weird.
Right. They did the early Triassic in the Walking with Dinosaurs prequel, Walking with Monsters.
Right. That was really good. I like that. And
that was a pretty good program. I didn't think it matched the previous two Walking with series because it was kind of like condensed. And it made a few really stupid blunders in a couple places. It showed, like, what is it? It showed, what was it? Those sail-backed synapsids, like Dimetrodons, descended from Petrolacosaurus. That's bullshit.
Right. Well, also, with the Dimetrodons, what I thought was really funny and really weird, it was like, they have lower. There was one scene, and I can't remember the exact way they worded it, but they said something like, with their lower communication smells, they communicate by pooping on each other or near each other. And I'm just like, that's
not what it said. It said that like dung is something they can't stomach, so one like a young one that's being chased like covers itself in dung to not get eaten.
That could be the case in a way, but like that one made a lot of weird leaps in certain animal behavior, especially considering the environments. Like they showed Dimetrodon in a lot of them in like desert areas and arid areas, and it's like you're not going to be wasting a bunch if you're in a dry area.
Well, that wasn't my biggest issue. My biggest issue is the sequences that show like evolution happening that are completely wrong.
Well, oh yeah,
because Petrolacosaurus was an early reptile, an early diapsid. 10 million years before that was the mammal reptile split. So it's impossible for a synapsid to like a Dimetrodon to be descended from it.
Right. Although one thing I really did
later it shows a Dimetrodon evolving into Gorgonopsids, which is even dumber.
Oh, that was so dumb. I forgot about them showing that. That was just
No, Gorgonopsids were not descended from Dimetrodon. I don't know why it did that.
But one thing they did really well, though, I thought was, I can't remember, what was the name of the little mammalia form that lived off the roots with the tunnels?
Diictodon.
Right, that little dude.
And actually, that's the one time it actually is accurate when it says Lystrosaurus being descended from Diictodon. That actually is probably true.
Right, at the very least, they're closely related enough that
either they're closely related or directly descended, but close enough.
Right, like something that was essentially the same thing probably became that anyway.
Right,
and I do believe we do have fossils of their tunnels with them in the bottom of it.
We do.
Yeah, all right, and with the way their tusks were shaped, almost definitely. Well, and the way they live, almost 100% guaranteed root eaters like they showed, especially living in the desert.
Yeah, Lystrosaurus, which they became like were really common in the early Triassic. We've actually found like a bunch of specimens of them.
And they also fossilized really well because, burrowing creature.
I think actually there's going to be a Lystrosaurus in Jurassic World Dominion, I think.
Wow. That's weird, but okay.
Yeah,
I would like to see a Lystrosaurus, though. They are adorable little guys.
Yeah, too bad Lystrosaurus lived like, I don't know, 50 million years before mosquitoes evolved, but who cares about logic at this point?
Right. They already threw that out a long time ago when they were proposing the idea of military dinos.
Yes. Yeah, that's the dumbest plot line in that movie. The whole idea that training a dinosaur to kill something you point a laser at is an efficient way to kill something. If you got a laser pointed at it, why don't you just shoot it?
Right. Dude, like, here's the funny thing. Like, I don't even have heavy, super expensive weapons. I guarantee you my hunting rifle with at least a couple well-placed shots can take down a Tyrannosaur, buddy.
Yeah.
All right. We're not the age of animals being used in combat roles outside of highly specific room clearing things like with dogs that you see sometimes just ain't happening.
It's such a stupid plot line. Yeah.
It
had
is.
a lot of just moments that kind of just attack your intelligence.
Although apparently it could have been a lot worse. At some point there was early drafts that included human dinosaur hybrids.
That actually might have been more fun because it just would have been so fucking out there and whacked.
Yeah, at that point it's like, well, it's no longer Jurassic World. Might as well get over it and watch it and see how silly it is.
Right.
But
I almost, I can give a shit about paleo accuracy at this point from the Jurassic World movies. I actually want them to go like way out there with the designs and give us insane shit.
Right, that would be. Although I got to say, I find it bizarre that the entire world becomes a quote-unquote Jurassic World because a handful of creatures were released in North America.
Yeah, you're using too much. You're using brain function than the writers of this movie thought of.
Unless there's like a 10-year time skip in an early news monologue cringe scene where they're like, oh, a bunch of other stuff that explains this. It's just going to be the greatest leap in logic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. They act like it's some final thing when they all get out. I can imagine the small ones like escaping into the environment, but the big ones are pretty goddamn easy to round up.
Dude, you could literally just pay some rednecks to clear them for you. You probably wouldn't even have to pay them.
Yeah, just shoot them with a few tranquilizer guns and then just move them to wherever.
Right, and if they're invasive and being dangerous, guaranteed, just put out an APB, all rednecks, shoot dinosaurs. They'll all be gone in a week.
Yeah. Like
these rednecks will be excited.
Yeah, compare the prehistoric planet accurate mosasaur to the one from Jurassic World, the enormous crocodile skin.
Like 5 times as large as a mosasaur should be.
Right. Though actually, the one in Prehistoric Planet is not the biggest one ever. Actually, Tylosaurus, which was another kind of mosasaur, was even bigger than the one in Prehistoric Planet. But it lived in an earlier time period, so they couldn't include it in the show.
Hey, wasn't mosasaur discovered by that? What was it? Sally searches for seashells by the seashore lady.
Mosasaurs were actually discovered like in the 1700s. I forget exactly where.
Right, but wasn't it by that one female, quote unquote, like female paleontologist who would write?
I'm thinking of the lady who discovered pterosaurs.
No. Oh, no. She discovered the dolphin-looking one, I think.
Oh, the ichthyosaurs, yeah.
Yes, that's her. Yeah,
Yeah,
she would often write under a male pseudonym or have males publish her papers.
The thing about ichthyosaurs, though, is for some they actually appeared pretty like early in the Triassic, but they disappeared in the middle of the Cretaceous, and no one really knows exactly why.
Probably just got outcompeted by, because that body build is more of a generalist body build. Probably got outcompeted by multiple niche specific dinos.
Well, it wouldn't be dinos; it would be mosasaurs, maybe. But
Plesiosaurs and whatnot.
right. Even yeah, there was also like these big-headed type of plesiosaurs. They were called pliosaurs. Walking with Dinosaurs features one of them. Dramatically oversizes it. There's another big thing that people make fun of Walking with Dinosaurs for. The Liopleurodon is like 10 times
It's a
bigger.
magical Liopleurodon.
Yes, it was a magical Liopleurodon because it's 10 times bigger than the real animal was.
Oh, I was going to say, Prehistoric Planet, one scene I really loved was the Mosasaur fight.
Oh, that was a great scene, yeah.
And then that one, swimming triumphantly and probably a bit panically to get some oxygen out from the depths.
Right.
The musical uplift of that scene was really good, and it was really pretty.
Yeah, and it made the mosasaurs pretty much their correct size. It says that they weighed 15 tons. That's accurate. They were that big.
Nice.
Was it Walking with Dinosaurs claims Liopleurodon was 24 meters in length and weighed over 100 tons. Bullshit. It was about 7 to 9 meters in length and weighed at most about 10 tons.
They were literally 10 times off.
Well, how it came to that number is kind of funny. Kind of does show a bit of creative negligence on the creators. That there was this pliosaur they found in a large block that its remains hadn't been like fully excavated and described, but someone told the creators of Walking with Dinosaurs that it could have been 19 meters in length, which that it was massive, which turned out not to be true. The animal in the block actually was only 13 meters in length.
Yeah, I was going to say, you mentioned that to me before, actually, when we were having these discussions.
Yeah. And then what the creators of Walking with Dinosaurs did was they assumed, well, the biggest individual of any animal isn't likely to be the one that fossilized. So they took those already dubious 19-meter length and they added an extra 5 meters onto it.
Right.
So basically they made it up. That's probably the biggest inaccuracy in Walking with Dinosaurs. No pun intended.
All right. Hey, man. So I think it's about time. I got to go to sleep, though, boss.
All right. Thanks for joining me, everyone. And everyone, be sure to tune in to Prehistoric Planet on Apple TV Plus. We loved it. It was a great show.
They're running a free trial right now, in case you're worried.
Yeah. If you want, you can even with a free trial watch it for free if you want to be a cheapskate about it. But but I just recommend giving it a view because it was a fantastic program.
Worth the price of commission on its own.
Abso-fucking-lutely. All right, everyone, cheerio.
Later.
Bye-bye.